transport vessel. They sailed for Bermuda, where naval officers again impressed them to serve on a warship, which threatened to swallow us all in the enormous maw of the British Navy. Refusing again, the captives hazarded a court-martial. Unable to prove that the sailors were subjects, the British transferred them to a prison at Halifax, where Myers worried that the locals would remember and recognize him. The War of 1812 pivoted on the contentious boundary between the king's subject and the Republic's citizen. In the Republic, an immigrant chose citizenship, in stark contrast to a British subject whose status remained defined by birth. That distinction derived from the American Revolution, when the rebelling colonists became Republican citizens by rejecting their past as subjects. An immigrant reenacted that revolution by seeking citizenship and forsaking the status of a monarch's subject. But the British denied that the Americans could convert a subject into a citizen by naturalization. By seizing supposed subjects from merchant ships, the Royal Navy threatened to reduce American sailors and commerce to a quasi-colonial status, for every British impressment was an act of counter-revolution. By resisting impressment and declaring war, the Americans defended their revolution. War raised the stakes in the conflict over subjects and citizens. By converting prisoners or hanging a few as deserters, the British bolstered their contention that any natural-born subject owed allegiance for life, no matter where he went or what nation pretended to naturalize him. Returning the favor, the Republic's officers sought to entice captive Britons to enter the American service, thereby reenacting the revolution on an individual scale. Because the line between citizen and subject was so contested, rival commanders promoted the desertion of enemy soldiers, the defection of prisoners, and the subversion of civilians in occupied regions. As much as on any battlefield, the British and the Americans waged the War of 1812 in the hearts and minds of Ned Myers and his fellow soldiers and sailors on both sides. Revolution. In the American Revolution, the victorious patriots forsook the mixed constitution of Great Britain, where a monarch and aristocrats dominated the common people, then the norm throughout the world. In a radical gamble, the patriots created a republic premised on the sovereignty of the collective people, rather than of a monarch and his parliament. Meant to protect and promote the liberty, property, and social mobility of ordinary white men, the republic bred a suspicion of government's power as a tool for aristocrats to live as parasites on the labor of the people. But that republic for white men hastened the dispossession of Indians and prolonged the enslavement of African Americans in the southern states. And the British despised the new republic as a dangerous folly, for they celebrated their mixed constitution as more stable, just, and powerful. Where Americans sought to disperse and reduce the power of government, the British sustained an empire with the coercive energy to regulate liberty, particularly that of their colonists and the sailors needed for the Royal Navy. After the Revolution, the British Empire and the American Republic remained uneasy neighbors in North America. In addition to spawning the Republic, the Revolution led the British to build a counter-revolutionary regime in Canada, beginning with 38,000 American loyalists expelled by the Patriot victory. In Upper Canada, they developed a loyalist America meant to set an example of superior stability and prosperity that eventually would entice the rebel Americans to forsake their Republican experiment. Loyalists didn't believe that their empire had permanently lost the fight against the Republican Revolution. Neither Britons nor Americans thought that their rival political systems could coexist for long on a shared continent. Britons predicted that the Republic inevitably would collapse into anarchy and civil war. Surely repentant Americans would then beg for readmission into the empire. With equal conviction, Americans insisted that nature destined their republic to dominate the continent.